we are better people when we can help each other. And the more complicated we make the help, the harder it is to be in community. And that for me is the goal. How do we make it easier for us to like each other?
This is Hungry Dogs with James Patterson. My guest today is the one and only Stacey Abrams. This is so fun for me and such an important one. Stacey will explain how growing up in the Deep South shaped her. Lessons she learned going to college in Atlanta, at Spelman, then at the University of Texas, obviously in Texas, and at Yale in Connecticut. She'll talk about why voting rights are incredibly personal to her and personal to her family. A quick note, we'll keep working on the audio and the video, but we can't do much with the video since I'm the video. But we'll do something better anyway, somehow. Here's Stacey Abrams. Look out! Yay!
Thank you.
Yeah. No, it's very exciting. I read it over the weekend. I like it a lot. And I like Avery Keene, the main character. And this is what, the third with Avery, right?
It is. It's Avery's third outing.
And While Justice Sleeps, that was the first one, right? Yep. But you don't need to read those two to love this one. We can start anywhere in the series. So, looking back a ways in your journey, your mom and dad had kind of you can be anything mantra, right?
Absolutely.
And it's so important, and it's almost worthy of a book or a whole lot of things, or maybe we could talk about it a lot more, not just your mom and dad, but in general. For me, my grandmother, we had this thing, Hungry Dogs Run Faster, and that was one of her things, and then go chop some wood, which is go out and do it, and somebody who believes in you. So clearly, with you and your siblings, you got a professor and a judge and a biologist and a social worker.
Yep.
You are.
You've clearly done your research.
A little bit. So tell me about that a little bit, how that works. And because I really think it's a big subject for an awful lot of people in their lives.
So I'm the second of 6 kids. My parents are both the first. My mom is the first of her family to finish high school. And she not only finished high school, went off to college, grad school twice. So has a master's in library science and master's of divinity, and went from being a college librarian to being a United Methodist minister. My dad is the first man in his family to go to college, and he did so despite being functionally illiterate. My dad grew up, with dyslexia in Mississippi during the Jim Crow South, and so they didn't diagnose him. But my dad has this amazing oral memory, and he memorized his way through school. When he and my mom met when they were 16, she helped him along, and they went to college. He eventually ended up getting his master's of divinity as well. And so both of my parents raised us with this very ethic that said, you cannot be stopped unless you stop yourself. My dad's way of saying it is, don't let anyone tell you no. He said, well, actually, the way he put it was, never tell yourself no, let someone else do it. And my mom would tell us, if you want to know it, go look it up. And when your mom's a research librarian, that has real meaning. But more than anything, what they told us was that we were entitled to be anything we were willing to work for. And so, as you pointed out, I've got a sister who's an anthropologist, a sister who's a biologist, a brother who's a social worker, a sister who's a judge, a brother who is figuring it out. But all of us come to the world with this curiosity and this hunger, but also with the sense that we can do things. And it was because my parents it wasn't that they didn't discipline us, but their discipline was never about curtailing our ambition. It was about honing our capacity to meet our intentions.
Yeah, no, it's incredible. In my family, my mother was the first in her family to go to college. My father grew up homeless. My mother's mother and father, they just graduated from 6th grade. They were great. They were terrific. They were smart, whatever. But that's, that was the thing.
That was it.
But they just, my grandmother did say, she said, you're not going to play in the NBA. And cruelly, she told me that when I was about 11, which I thought that was a little early to break my dreams up like that. But, so moving along a little bit, you go to Spelman in Atlanta, right? Terrific college. Just a quick little ad for historically Black colleges and universities. I got turned on a few years back about trying to donate to those schools, and now I'm
including Spelman. We have 37 historic. I'm not patting myself on the back because my mother and grandmother are the ones that just said, you got to give it away as much as you can. But the thing for people listening and watching, whatever, about historically black colleges and universities, they really need the money. They need the help. This is a great place to consider. And 60% of the black doctors in this country originally come out of historically black colleges and universities, and 50% of the lawyers. And I don't blame them for that part. But the doctor thing, but it's really, and they do need the money. And so that's a wonderful, but tell me about, so you along the way, you went to Spelman, you went to University of Texas, and you went to Yale. Tell me about that. So here you've been to, those three, and what are the differences? What, if you want to get into that, I think it's an interesting, yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, Spelman was an extraordinary opportunity that I didn't want. My mom tricked me into going to Spelman. She told me just apply. I didn't want to go to school in the South. I didn't want to go to an all-girls school. I didn't want to go to an HBCU. But my mom said, just apply. And then I applied and I got in, and she's like, just go visit. And once there, as someone who grew up in a community where I was absolutely in the minority, it was just a very different experience to not only be to be among people who looked like me and had similar experiences, but to be among people who had my race and my gender and who were so different. And I think that's parts of going to an HBCU that gets lost. You may have phenotypic, similarities, but that lets you then get to the differences that so many others take for granted. And Spelman for me was a place where I really got to explore all of the things that were in my head. I ended up without an actual major. I was the first interdisciplinary studies major from Spelman because they just said, pick something and go.
Please get out of here. Yeah,
exactly. So I did political science and economics and sociology and ran amok, and then I got out.
That's a great thing, by the way, about schools. And I wish a lot more of them would open up that way. And let's look at a lot of stuff. Yeah.
It was fun and it was fantastic. And it helped me understand. So when I went to grad school at Texas, the stadium at the University of Texas could hold the town I grew up in. I grew up in Gulfport, Mississippi, and the stadium could have held the whole population while I was growing up. So Texas was a very different place to be at the LBJ school. And that for me was this very interesting juxtaposition of being from the South, but Texas is not the same as Mississippi. And then Yale was like going to a different planet. Resource-wise.
A good planet?
It was a good planet. It was just very different. And when you haven't grown up with that, I mean, when you described your parents and your grandparents, like when you don't grow up in that privilege, when you're not used to sitting next to someone named Rothschild, and it turns out, yes, they're one of those. Like you stop asking, are you one of those with these famous names? When half of your class went to another Ivy, and that their expectations are different. Yeah. It helped me really ground myself. I never got confused about who I was, but I finally had a chance to imagine things I'd never heard about. Like I was sitting in class when a friend of mine, a classmate, made $1 million on an IPO. I understood none of the letters in the conversation he was having with me, but it was the first time I had the proximity to that kind of privilege, but also the recognition that because I could be near it, I could imagine it and I could possibly have it. I went the wrong way and never quite achieved their economic success, but it was extraordinary to have that juxtaposition in my life. And it really opened up for me that I shouldn't be bounded by any past history. I had the privilege of figuring out what I wanted.
Right. And you had to be courageous, and I'm sure it made you nervous before you got there.
Oh, yeah. It was.
I would think. Even I'm probably going out to Texas, same thing.
Oh, absolutely. There are pictures of me when I had very short hair. This is something I don't normally talk about. I wore
your hair looks nice.
Well, thank you.
I think your hair looks nice. Just me. I don't know. Yeah.
Well, when I was in college, I wore braids. And when I got to grad school, braids still. When I got to law school, I did not realize how nervous I was. And you have to take out braids and you cut them so you can unravel them. And I decided to give myself a natural, basically a short afro, without thinking about the fact that I didn't know a single barber in New Haven, Connecticut, and had to go to school the next day. So
amazingly, in New Haven, you'd be just fine. New Haven, yeah.
Turns out
you can get your hair done there for sure. Yeah.
But I didn't know that. So it was my projection of my nervousness came through deciding to do a very dramatic haircut on myself, which I've never done again.
Yeah. Well, Connecticut's like a lot of states. People don't quite understand how complicated the state is. They see the sort of it's like my wife went to University of Wisconsin. People just go, she says, no, it's a lot more complicated than a lot more complicated.
You know, my mom is a graduate. That's where she did her master's of library science, University of Wisconsin.
Oh, okay.
I was born in medicine.
All right. Oh, that's right. That's right. Yeah, well, Sue would love you. Sue was such a crazy badger. So, just moving on to another, which I think is a passion of yours and an important passion, voting rights. And at one point in Georgia, the government canceled over 1 million voting registrations and making it more and more difficult. And that seems to be another thing that we're going to have to deal with in the near future. And then eventually, you and people working around you, given, and I think accurately, responsibility for helping Biden win in Georgia, 800,000 or whatever the number is, new voting registration. Let's just talk a little bit about voting rights, because it's so crucial. I mean, that's a lever, man. It's just so important, and not in every state, but in most states. So just talk a little bit about that and your passion, if you want to. Yeah, anytime you don't want to talk about something, I won't talk about that. I'm talking about something else. But let's get back to my book. Let's tell this coded justice thing some more. Come on, we can, it's wonderful. I loved it. I really did love it. But go ahead, on voting rights, if you don't mind.
Well, no, I'll lead that into coded justice and just the work that I do. Part of voting rights, we think of democracy as this abstract concept, but both you and I come from families where the ability to have a say in how your community works changes how you feel about yourself and about the future. I come to voting rights because I'm from the first generation in my family to be born with voting rights. Yeah. And my dad was arrested when he was 14 for registering Black people to vote in Mississippi. The right to vote is the foundation for all of the other things. We can choose to use it or not, but it is how we measure our capacity for citizenship. If we have the right to say yes or no, we may not win, we may not get the people we want, but we should have a voice, and that voice is our vote. And it sounds basic, but it is so fundamental.
Particularly but basics are it, man. Basics. Exactly. People keep going. It's not a cliche to talk about blocking and tackling if you're not blocking and tackling.
Or if you've never had to worry about it. So when you talk about people being purged and voter ID, no one disagrees that you should have to prove who you are. The question is, how complicated should the proof be?
Yes.
Not an issue of whether you should be able to vote or not, but voting on a Tuesday in November might have been easy when everyone was a farmer. But now that you have on-call scheduling, if you can't make it across town because the bus stopped, should you lose your right for the next 4 years to have a say in how your community operates? Yes. That's why I believe in voting rights, because those of us...
No, 100%. 100%. Things need to be where people can, I can do this. And it just, not just voting, putting anything, insurance forms, whatever. No, I'm sorry. Some of these forms, people in Yale couldn't go through them. That's wrong. That's just a wrong thing.
It's wrong. And to your point about just the foundations, we are better people when we can help each other. And the more complicated we make the help, the harder it is to be in community. And that for me is the goal. How do we make it easier for us to like each other?
Yeah. Yeah. And to have, and once again, this is a word that a lot of people don't think about much, how important it is and how empowered, people, empowered. Of course, it's hard to really understand what that means for a lot of people.
Well, did you say your father?
There's a fair number of people are empowered after they don't think about it.
Exactly.
Don't think about it.
You said was it your father or your grandfather who grew up homeless?
My father.
Yeah. So right now in Georgia, your father would have an extraordinarily difficult time being able to cast a ballot because the state of Georgia changed the rules last year or a couple of years ago to make it more difficult for homeless people to cast ballots. Yeah. My issue is if you want to end homelessness, you should hear from those who understand the problem and want to participate in creating change.
When I say my father was homeless, he was actually grew up in a basically for homeless people. It's called the Pogey. So he and his mother lived in this, whatever. So they had a roof over their head, but that was where people who basically had no money were. Yeah.
Right. But think about it. People who live in their cars, who have a place to park, but don't have,
Yes.
they have a roof over their heads. My concern when it comes to voting rights, and why I urge people to go beyond the superficial and look
Yes.
at the administrative, the bureaucratic. It's what you write about. It's what I write about. The
Yeah.
devil is in the details. And when the
Yes.
details make it impossible for you, or nearly impossible for you to participate unless you have to go through these Herculean tasks, then your democracy isn't real. And
Yeah.
we have to make it accessible. It doesn't have to be easy, but it shouldn't be hard.
There's a big difference between clothes that just fit and clothes that make you feel like you got it together. That's what True Classic figured out. They did. They started with one simple idea: make premium, comfortable clothes that look great without the designer price tag. I think that makes so much sense. Clearly, it's working. They've sold over 25 million shirts to 5 million customers with more than 200,000 five-star reviews. I publish a lot of books, and let me tell you, I wish I had that many five-star reviews. Maybe I do, who knows? But 200,000 is incredible. Here's what I like about them. Their stuff actually fits. The shirts are tailored where you want them to be and relaxed where you need them to be. I wear their polos when I golf and just hang out, and their pants when I want something more comfortable than jeans. They look good and they feel great. And guess what? They've got options for everyone, men, women, even kids, which makes True Classic a perfect gift this holiday season. True Classic, holidays, perfect fit. You can find them on Amazon, Target, Costco, Sam's Club, or head to trueclassic.com/Patterson to try them out for yourself. Help me out by liking and subscribing to Hungry Dogs. You can help a lot, so help, especially if you like the interviews. Your friends will if you like the interviews, your friends will like the interviews, right? Do you have any friends? I don't know. Also, drop me a comment with any ideas you have to make the Hungry Dog interviews better. I'm hungry to hear what you think. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
So I said we're going to talk about books. So let's talk about books. Let's start with Selena Montgomery. Who's that?
Selena Montgomery was my pen name for my first 8 novels. I wrote romantic suspense. I love telling stories, and I wanted to write about falling in love after, usually there was a body count first, and whoever survived got to fall in love.
Okay, all right. So, but just talk a little bit about what drew you to writing books, to writing fiction. Did you read a lot of fiction growing up?
Absolutely. Yes. Both my mom as a librarian she would read to us every night. And my dad.
My mother worked in a library too. We were a teacher and work. Yeah, but go ahead. I'm sorry. Yeah.
No, it's okay. But you appreciate it. Like when you are when you are raised by someone who loves words, you love words. And my mom was an avid reader. My dad struggled to read, but loved reading. But he would tell us these amazing stories. I like to, he would have to tell us stories on Fridays. He worked at a shipyard, so he wasn't there to put us at bed at night. But on Fridays, he would, we gather all together and he would tell us a bedtime story. And he had to, calibrate it for 6 kids. So it was kind of a G-rated version of Game of Thrones, because you had, fighter pilots and fairies and all kinds of stuff happening as he tried to tell a story we all wanted to hear. But because of both of them, I grew up just loving the act and the art of storytelling, but also the ability to read a good book and find beautiful words. And, I joke that when you're a kid and you tell stories, you're a liar, but when you write them down, you're an author. And so I decided to write them.
How's Georgia doing with kids reading at grade level, stuff like that?
It continues to be a challenge. We are not the worst, but we aren't nearly where we should be.
Connect with me a little bit at some point after this, and because I work with the University of Florida, they have a program that works. Florida takes a lot of baloney, and some of it they deserve, but the percentage of Black kids reading in Florida, it's the highest in the country. Same with Latino kids. They actually have something that they can take the numbers from the 40s into the 70s and 80s.
That's amazing.
And that will say, no, it's more than amazing. It's life-saving.
Oh, absolutely.
Because as you know, and once again, I don't care whether we're preparing kids to go to Yale but get them be competent readers so they can get through high school.
Well,
they get through high school, they got some choices, they got some chances, you can go from there.
And you mentioned it at the top of the conversation. My parents believe that we had the right to explore the world, and that happens through reading. When you can walk into a space and feel confident that you understand what's happening around you, that changes everything, and reading gives you that.
Yeah. And you can find out about things. You really can. You can go, okay, what would it be like? Don't guess if it. One of the things like with arts, one of the things we always tried to do, bring him up, is just keep opening doors for him. Just, what about this? Hudson River. I'm looking at the Hudson River. Tell me about this river or whatever. So, all right. So let's go to coded justice. How, if, I don't know if it has, as you know, I've done a few books with, I don't know if you dealt with President Clinton.
Yes, I do.
And he brings, authenticity to the books I do with him. And Dolly Parton's, once again, that kind of book. It was country western, and he brought the same thing. So you have all this experience in politics, and Avery Keene, comes out of that world. How does that influence, like, let's say the Avery Keene novels?
So I wanted Avery to be in the space of being a lawyer, because that was my first thing. I was a lawyer. I wanted her to be in politics, but politics adjacent. And I wanted her to be able to navigate multiple worlds. But most importantly, I wanted her to be someone who had responsibility, but no authority. And you and I both know when your characters have power and authority, they navigate in a different way. But when they don't, that's when you have to be ingenious. That's when you have to be sly. That's when you have to be clever. And I wanted her to learn with the audience about the politics that she was grappling with. I wanted her to learn with the audience about the power she had that she didn't know about. And you sometimes see politics as so distant from our lived experience. For me, I wanted Avery Keene to help us get inside there. Like, these people are doing stuff that affects you. So she's my invitation to the rest of the world to come in and understand politics, but to have fun with it, to hear all the acronyms and realize that this is really how it happens. But also, when you're done, to leave the novel feeling a little bit more in control of the world you're a part of.
And understanding stuff a little better. So in coded justice, a lot of you have a cyber attack which threatens the legal system. You get into, which is an interesting area, the dangers of artificial intelligence. You deal with healthcare rights for veterans, which I'm very interested in as well. Let's talk about how some of that works in the novel. And one notion is, can, in the real world, but also in the novel, the notion, can the legal system keep up with the evolving digital world? I mean, I don't know. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but,
Well, and it's one of the reasons I wanted to write the book. AI is moving so quickly. A few weeks ago, when the mega bill was moving, there was this moratorium that was inserted in the House version. It came out in the Senate version, but would have said that state and local legislators cannot regulate AI for a decade. I want people to remember 10 years ago, did you know what ChatGPT was? We didn't. And if this moratorium had taken effect, if they try to do it again, it's basically saying we don't get to regulate a technology that can transform everything about how we live. And so the first goal with coded justice, I want people to feel comfortable. We need to be cautious about it, but it's hard. It goes back to reading. You got to know what you're afraid of, but you also have to know what it's capable of. And this is a powerful technology. The second part was I wanted it to feel accessible.
I mean, to genuinely understand within reason what are the good things that can happen, and to genuinely understand what the dangers are. The same with the internet, which we didn't seem to really figure that one out too well.
Exactly. We didn't regulate it because we thought, and let's understand, regulation does not mean stopping. Regulation means asking questions and making sure we have some ability when we don't like the answer to do something about it. That's
unfortunately, you say that and I say that, but it doesn't necessarily happen that way when we get to the political bodies.
Which is why I did this book, because the second part is, what's the one thing we all have in common is that we need healthcare. And the most sympathetic population that is entitled to government provided healthcare are veterans. And yet they are the most complicated patients that we can imagine. And the reason I wanted to use veterans is I also want to talk about diversity equity, inclusion, DEI, which is getting a bad rap from some, of some cynics. But all it means is that we actually think about what happens to people, what happens when communities are different, but they're pulled together and then they need healthcare. And those are our veterans. And if AI can make it easier to serve them, that's a good. But what happens when we haven't asked the questions about why we haven't served them already? And that goes to the politics of it. And so Avery comes in because she's trying to help this company go public. But at the same time, they've got to deal with the political realities and the legal realities of a technology most of us don't understand.
Yeah. Right. They're fascinating. One of my favorite characters in the book, and you can talk about the character by the name of Milo.
Yes.
Tell us about Milo and writing about Milo.
Milo is the basically the large language model, the LLM. He's the chat bot that helps run the clinic where all of our veterans are getting serviced. And Milo is a snarky, hyper intellectually superior technology that does not necessarily respect those it works for. So, and if you've ever tried to use ChatGPT or Claude or Perplexity, sometimes you ask questions and you appreciate the answers, and sometimes you think that the AI is mocking you a little bit. Milo has been trained. Its alignment, its training is supposed to be that it should act like a doctor. But what happens when we train technology to think like a doctor? Because sometimes doctors think they will go beyond what we think they should, or they know more than we
talk in doctor talk. Yes.
Exactly. And so Milo tries to help, and we've all had people who try to help us too much. And so Milo is both technology and a character in the novel.
In your life, do you use artificial intelligence much?
I'm using it more. In fact, because of this book, I didn't use it before because I was concerned. I didn't know enough. And so one of the reasons I love writing is it gives me an excuse to go learn stuff. So I spent a few months reading everything I could about AI, doing a short course. MIT had this short course on their website that I took. I listened to a lot of podcasts and became very afraid of some of the people we live on this planet with. But I emerged feeling more.
That's why you live in your office there. Yes, never leaves. Yeah.
But that's, AI should raise our eyebrows and raise our concerns. It should not scare us, but we shouldn't be blithe. It's a tool, like every other tool. Tools can be used to help us, and they can be turned into weapons. And we need to understand this tool because it is literally everywhere.
There's one thing, similarities. You mentioned Alex Cross and Avery Keene. And one of the things about Alex, I don't know if people think about this, but I do, because this is what drives the Cross stuff. And it's this thing of balancing your work life with your family life. And there's on Amazon now, the series, and Aldous Hodge plays Alex Cross. And one of the great things about Aldous is he's very intense. So he really can get the work part, and he feels so intense, but he's also great with kids. So you really feel that balance between, or the trying to balance between this very difficult work life, which isn't realistic, but for police, it's a very difficult life, and then the family life. And Avery also has to balance sort of work life and her personal life. How's that?
Avery has a complicated family. So her father passed away when she was a teenager. Her mother was a drug addict who also turns out has mental health challenges. And so she's trying to navigate being a caretaker for the person who should have taken care of her. She has this found family, her best friend Ling, her boyfriend Jared, and her former lawyer, now friend Noah. And even there, they work with her when she brings them in, but they challenge her. And sometimes it's like, do you want to take your spouse to work? Do you want to take your best friend to work with you? And to your point about balance, sometimes balance isn't possible. I tend to go with the idea of work-life Jenga. Balance is never going to happen, but if you can at least figure out what's going to fall apart, you can rebuild it when it happens.
I spent a lot of time writing about people who never sleep, detectives, etc. But when I finally get to myself, I want to feel like an escape. That's where Cozy Earth comes in. Their sheets and pajamas are ridiculously soft and actually help keep you cool all night, which is cool. No waking up sweaty, no kicking the covers off at 3 in the morning, just pure comfort. If you're someone who likes to curl up with a book, and I hope you are, or watch a movie on the couch, their bubble cuddle blanket is a game changer. It's plush and luxurious without being heavy, and it's one of those things you don't realize you've been missing until you have it. Cozy Earth just gets it. They make pieces that feel like slowing down, like home. It's why their pajamas, blankets, and bedding make some of the best gifts you can give this time of year. They even back everything with a 100-night sleep trial and a 10-year warranty. Try it, live with it, and if you don't love it, you can send it back. But I'm betting you won't. Black Friday has come early at Cozy Earth. Right now, you can stack my code Patterson on top of their site-wide sale, giving you up to 40% off in savings. The deals won't last, so start your holiday shopping today. And if you get a post-purchase survey, be sure to mention you heard about Cozy Earth right here.
You know, there's so many when people are sort of a little well-known actors and athletes and whatever, writers to some extent, it becomes hard for people to see them as human beings, which I wish we could do more of that. And just in general, you can just say, wait, it's a human being here. How are we doing these nasty attacks on this person? No, this is a real person, you know. So how did you feel when one of your nonfiction books, Our Time Is Now, was banned at the Naval Academy as a human being?
It was deeply discomforting. I mean, look, I love learning. I love knowledge. I love this country. And to be told that my book was too dangerous for the U.S. Naval Academy that took my books off the shelf, but kept Mein Kampf by Hitler. My book is Our Time Is Now, Power, Purpose, and the Fight for a Fair America. I talk about how we should better use our democracy to serve as many people as possible. And when the edict comes down from the president that there are certain things we shouldn't know, and your book is number 11 on the list of examples, that it made me angry, but it also made me determined, because clearly I'm saying things that somebody's concerned about, which means I must be saying them well.
Yeah. Hey, I've had, in particular, Maximum Ride. I don't think it was banned at the Naval Academy, but it's been banned, and that's like insanity. You know, 30,000 kids have read it. They're all fine. And, you know, there's nothing dangerous in the book. I think the other thing about and book, I won't get into book banning much, but the notion that one person can walk into a district who hasn't read the book and get it banned, that's like beyond crazy. Yeah, so we're going through this tough time now. A lot of stuff going on, a lot of changes that, you know, some of the areas, yeah, okay, we need to do something there, we need to do something there, but not what you're doing. Just your thoughts right now, but how do we kind of move through this morass? How are you moving through it? How do you help people, your friends and neighbors and whatever, to kind of move forward and keep your chin up and all that stuff?
I start with reminding us that before we had money or power or position, we had each other. My parents raised us with 3 jobs: go to church, go to school, take care of each other. If you hold to those foundations, to faith, to learning and knowledge, to service, it's a lot easier to remember how to get through the day. But then we have the second layer of responsibility, and that is, if we love this country, then we should be doing the things that we believe are necessary to make it its best version of itself. And so if you're outraged by something, if you're offended by something, the question is, are you offended because it curtails your freedom or because it invites someone else to have more freedom? We have to start asking ourselves what we're willing to allow. What freedoms are we willing to sacrifice in exchange for convenience? What comforts are we willing to claim in exchange for someone else's humanity? And what I remind people of is we've been through these times before. Heather Cox Richardson writes beautifully about sort of reminding us that this feels new, but it isn't new. And we do best when we remember who we are and why we're here, and we're willing to pool our common resources. So to your point of how to keep your chin up, make sure you're sitting with somebody, make sure you're reaching out,
Yeah.
calling those who are feeling overwhelmed, even if it's you being overwhelmed. But instead of calling to complain, call to ask, how can I help? Ask someone what they need, because there's nothing more uplifting than the ability to help someone else be better than they were the moment before.
Yeah. One of the useful tools, getting back to your book, this is a tool to help. And because some people now, they'll sit there and they'll watch whatever, the left or the right, and just glue themselves to the television all day long. I'm sure there are going to be studies at some point, and people are going to go, man, because that's a lot of toxic stuff. You just turn it off from time to time. It's okay. Turn it off. Yeah.
Turn it off and remember that we're people first. We may have partisan beliefs. I certainly do. But my first job is to people. My second job is to my party. And the party I'm a part of, it's because I like their principles.
What a delightful thing that would be if everybody in Congress and whatever was just voting their conscience, whatever that might be. Where does your conscience take you? Well, fine, vote that way. That'd be nice. It's not happening. It used to happen, I think, a little more. Vote your conscience. That's yeah. Ooh, big thought, right? What else? What have I missed? Anything?
No. Well, I have a question for you.
Sure.
What do you love the most about being a writer? Like you are so extraordinarily prolific, and you have
talented too. I hate that.
Absolutely.
Prolific is my least favorite word. Somebody said you're lucky if you find something you love to do in life. And then it is a miracle if you get paid, if that can be your job, and it's not a job. I don't work for a living. I play for a living. These interviews I do because I like meeting people for half an hour, 40 minutes, whatever the heck it is. So this is great. I got to meet Stacey and we talked for a little bit. And, I've got to meet, I don't know, 20 or 30 people already through these interviews. And it's great. And hopefully we try to keep them human to human, try not to get into politics too much. Cause I just want to get into it with the person, talk about books a little bit, not proselytize. I'm not trying to get up on any podium to tell people what to think. Yeah, I don't know if that answered the question, but I don't work at it. It's all, just did a nonfiction, the, Idaho 4, about that terrible murders out in Idaho. At first I didn't want to do it. And then, I got together with Vicki Ward and we started talking about it. And we said, we don't write about Kohlberger. We don't want to write one of these, a brilliant murderer we have, and he is a smart man, unfortunately, and whatever crazy or whatever his deal is. But, what we wanted to do was to capture the tragedy to these small towns, 2 small towns. You talk about your small town. Well, Moscow, Idaho, and Pullman, Washington, where Washington State is, 2 small towns, 2 college towns, relatively innocent. Not much had happened there. And all the people living in those towns, their lives will never be the same. The families' lives never be the same. The students' their lives, they're never going to, those scars will not heal. I mean, they'll heal somewhat, but they're not going to heal. So I wanted to write about that and get people to think about that side of tragedies rather than, since there's a documentary on Prime too. And what I like about it is it's not sensational. It's really about the people and the tragedy in their lives and trying to get people to understand. To me, and most of the nonfiction, I do this series with Matt Eversman, Walk in My Combat Boots, and we did one on ER nurses, and we're doing one on teachers now. And our notion is that when you get done reading these books, you will understand something that you thought you understood and you didn't understand. Where you'll come out of it going like, oh, I thought I understand ER nurse. No, you had no idea. I don't know how anybody survives being an ER nurse. It's unbelievable. Day in and day out, again and again, every curtain they pull back is another emergency. I don't know how people do it. It's an amazing story. Teachers. My mother was a teacher. I don't know how, it's just, you got the left after me, you got the right after them, you got the kids acting up more than they ever have. You have some parents, you have lawsuits. You have somebody telling you how to teach it's like very, very difficult. And I don't know that we appreciate that. But I like the notion of letting people get in the shoes of these folks and go, okay, I really hadn't, I'm not giving teachers the credit that we should be. This is another one of these fields, same with nurses, where thank you for your service.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable what you're doing. Unbelievable. And we don't, we're not giving people credit in certain areas that they really deserve and need, all that stuff. So anyway, thank you. Thank you for the time. Thank you for inviting me in. Thank you for giving me a beautiful weekend with Code of Justice. This is terrific. You've done it again. I love the character. So
Well, this was an honor, so thank you.
Thanks for joining me on this episode of Hungry Dogs. Help me out by liking and subscribing to the show. We want to get these interviews out to as many people as we can. You can help a lot. If you like the interviews, your friends will like the interviews, so help. Also, drop me a comment with any ideas you have to make the Hungry Dog interviews better. I'm hungry to hear what you think. I love new ideas. Thank you.